Now, I spoke at Princeton University years ago, and a young man got up and said, I don't like your system. I said, I can't do anything with that unless you tell me what it is that you don't like. Well, you want to give people things for nothing. So I asked him whether he was born in America. He got all that for nothing. Does that bother you? He said, well, I still don't like it. I said, are you paying your way through college? He said, well, my dad is. Aren't you getting that for nothing? He says, I still don't like it. I said, all right, as I understand, your father's loaded. He's wealthy. If he dies, you want his money to go to the Heart Fund and the Cancer Fund, not to you, because you don't believe anybody ought to get anything for nothing. He said, just a minute. Mm-hmm. Well, they laughed him off the platform. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants things for nothing. Everybody does. The air you breathe, you get for nothing. The water you used to get for nothing.
I remember getting water for nothing. I remember.
So, you see, the world you live in is one gigantic myth. Mm-hmm. They tell you there's such a thing as love. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about love, another big myth. I'm going to tell you what there is. When two people meet that are extensional to one another, meaning they render services, they help them understand things, that's building a relationship. Mm-hmm. And in a real good relationship, both people reinforce or educate one another. Yeah. And then they learn to enjoy the presence of one another. Mm-hmm. But what happens to love when people split up? Bingo, it's hate. Mm-hmm. So there's really no love as a rule, because guys go for girls because they're pretty. They go for girls because they have sometimes a nice body, and sometimes sexual needs. But actually they have more in common with men. Men do have more in common with men. Women have more in common with women. However, in the relationship, when you put men and women together in a building, the guys go to the girls go to the guys. But if they've been married 10 years and you bring people together, the guys go to the guys and the girls go to the girls, because they have more in common. What girls talk about don't interest most men. And most people have children. A guy came up to me and said, I've got 8 children. And I said, what are they for? Just having children doesn't mean a damn thing. They're good for the army later on. The army takes your kids away. Let me tell you soldiers something, if you can understand what I'm talking about. When they conscript your life, they should conscript all the war industries, every company that makes battleships, everything related to war, conscripted, so they get the same salary as the soldiers, because they are putting up their life to protect the country, and the country is selling stuff to you. So that's called the national debt. The national debt. Who the hell do you owe this money to? They say, well, the country owes money to itself. I can assure you, if we owed money to ourselves, we'd tear it up. You owe money to private lending institutions. That's what war is about. War is big business. Sometimes they sell warships to the enemy, weapons to the enemy, indirectly. So I'm going to tell you what you do about it. All political systems cannot solve problems. The system has to break down so that people lose confidence in their elected leaders. We at the Venus Project would like to make a motion picture. Name of the pictures and the world will be one, showing how we get from here to there, to the moneyless society. That motion picture will go all over the world, can reach millions of people. If we don't make that movie, it's going to be very difficult, because people don't know what to do. When people say, well, what about a guy like Ralph Nader? He's a very nice guy. He's absolutely honest. But believe me, he doesn't know what to do. So when you've got a political liberal, or you've got places like Free Speech TV, where you hear criticism that you won't hear elsewhere. You'll hear that on the station, but they don't know what to do. So they just throw out all the problems. Say, well, these politicians are corrupt, or this company is making money out of war. What do you do about it? If you don't offer an alternative, you leave people in midair. I couldn't get on Free Speech TV. I don't know why. Either they have an agenda which they don't understand. I'm trying to tell you the liberal, the 1929 liberal, is dangerous, because they don't point out a method of solving problems. We're going to point out ways of solving problems. For example, first thing that has to be done is a global survey by different nations to see what resources we have. Then your survey would show you how many cases of heart disease, cystic fibrosis. That tells us how many hospitals we have to build. So if you do a survey of the resources, not money, there's not enough money in the world to build hospitals, but there's more than enough resources out there. So during World War I and World War II, we didn't have very much money, but we had a lot of resources. So we built a national debt. And we went out and we turned out airplanes. At the beginning of the war, America had 600 first-class fighting airplanes. Germany was turning out 2,000 planes a month. So we asked the aircraft industry and the automobile industry to expand their plants. They said, hell no. What are we going to do with the big plants after the war? There's no orders. So the government means you. They took your money and spent the development of all American industry. 60% of American industry were owned by the American people. They paid for plant expansion, cost plus. So the American people don't know this, and then they sold it back for 1 cent to 3 cents on the dollar, gave it to industry free. They gave your things away. Mm-hmm. What do you think they're doing with your funds now? They're giving it to the people that created the problem. Mm-hmm. So you think Obama or anybody else is going to solve a problem? Even if he did, he'd be shot. Do you understand
Especially
that?
If he did,
there's vested interests that are more important than your life. I'm trying to tell you that they don't give a damn about people, the government. Proof.
We know that.
Industry would not outsource if they cared about people. Why does industry outsource? To maintain the competitive edge. Suppose you're a nice guy, and you got a lot of women and men working in your factory. He takes out medical insurance for the help. He builds a playground for the children of the women that worked in his plant. And instead of paying a minimum wage, which is $5 and something an hour, he pays them $10 an hour. Nice guy. He outsources. You can't stay in business very long. Nobody's going to invest in your company if you take care of it. We want you to invest in packaging, advertising. So being a nice guy will kill you. So being brought up in a country where the bottom line is profit, think about that now. Don't forget, and you people that are religious, Jesus chased the money changers out of the temple. They're all back in now, running the whole show. So religion doesn't work. It really didn't, never did. Religious people kill, they get angry, they're jealous, they go to church, and they pray. That isn't what Jesus did. He went around helping people. He associated with bums, beggars, prostitutes, the downtrodden. Today, the priests and ministers and directors of church have dinner mostly with the wealthy people, the only ones that can put a new chandelier in the church. Having dinner with a garbage man doesn't help the church. So the church, not only that, I just want to show you how foolish it is. When the Pope comes to America, he points to God. When he goes to China, he points the wrong way. It's the other side of the world. So he's a dummy, stupid man. He's not well informed. They say, I'll see you at sunrise. The sun doesn't rise. The earth rotates in that direction. We still speak with a language that was designed hundreds of years ago. And our language is one of the major problems, because if you learn a new language, a sane language, the big question then comes up is it possible to develop a language that's not subject to interpretation? Well, when you read the Bible, somebody says, I think Jesus meant this, and somebody says, oh no, he meant that. And the third person says, no, both you guys are wrong. So you got the Lutheran, the Seventh-day Adventist, the Catholic, because it's subject to interpretation. Is it possible to develop a language that's not subject to interpretation? Mathematics.